Okay, so we're about to open up a time capsule. And no, I'm not talking about some dusty old metal box. Our time capsule, it's a book. And it's a portal to a world I guarantee you've never seen before. What it was like to be at an American university way back at the turn of the 20th century. And this is it, Stanford Stories, published way back in 1900. It was written by a couple of alumni, Charles Field and Will Irwin, who basically wanted to bottle up the spirit of their young university. They wanted to capture everything, the vibe, the rivalries, the romance, for all the students who would come after them. You know, right at the very beginning, the authors give us a heads up. They basically say, hey, if you're one of those readers who gets hung up on slang, you're probably not going to be that interested in the undergraduate. To really get this world, you have to dive into its language, its slang, all the unwritten rules. So yeah, we kind of have to leave our 21st century expectations at the door for this one. All right, let's do it. Let's step into that world. This was a place with super strict social codes, some unbelievably intense rivalries, and these elaborate rituals that pretty much dictated every single part of student life. And right at the very heart of it all was this thing they called the rush. Just look at this definition, it's straight from the book. They actually called it a relic of barbarism themselves. This was not your friendly neighborhood competition. We're talking about a formalized, often violent conflict between classes. And the weapon of choice? Get this, trunk rope. So who exactly was doing all this fighting? You might be thinking, rival colleges, right? Nope. Forget that. The biggest, most important battle was happening right there, on their own campus.
It was freshmen versus sophomores, and believe me, this rivalry was intense. Freshmen would have to guard their class year painted on the water tank because the sophomores were always trying to paint over it. They would literally plot to tie up the entire sophomore baseball team. And oh, it got personal. They talk about dragging rivals out of their dorms in the middle of the night, or even, as the book puts it, from the arms of 20 roblet dames. I mean, this was serious business.
All right, so let's shift gears from all-out class warfare to something a bit more personal, but trust me, no less elaborate. The fine art of the student prank. This wasn't just messing around, it was a celebrated part of the culture.
They even had their own word for it, joshing. And a josh wasn't just some simple little joke. No, a good josh was a whole complex scheme. It was a way to test boundaries, to build up your reputation. But usually it all boiled down to one of two things: getting out of some obligation, or, and this was the big one, trying to impress a girl.
And the dedication to a good Josh was honestly incredible. Just listen to this plan. It's straight out of one of the stories. So here's the setup. You're a student named Van Dyke. You've just met the girl of your dreams. But, oh no, your glee club is leaving town tomorrow. What do? The solution is obvious, right? Fake appendicitis. The whole plan involved this dramatic scene at a concert, clutching your side, moaning back at the hotel, and very cleverly refusing to see a doctor. All of this just to get one more day in town with her. So, the big question, did it work? Well, yes and no. His friends were totally convinced. They went out and hired the best doctor they could find for him. But here's the catch. They pulled the doctor aside and told him that their poor friend was a bit delusional and only thought he had appendicitis. So the prankster ends up trapped in bed with a doctor basically humoring him, and his grand plan to see the girl, completely and utterly ruined. And speaking of trying to win a girl's attention, that brings us perfectly to the world of courtship. And listen, if you thought the pranks were elaborate, you just wait. The rules of romance back then were a whole other level of drama and, well, social choreography. I mean, this was a world with all these strict, unspoken rules. Receptions were super formal. Couples were, as they put it, doubly guarded by parents. The big date night, it was all about strolling through gardens to find the perfect, secluded arbor to eat some ices. Everything was about these big, grand, public gestures, like sending crazy expensive orchids. And all of it happened under the constant watchful eye of chaperones. This image from the book just captures the whole atmosphere so perfectly, doesn't it? Past the lonely redwood tree to the university. It really sets a scene. It's romantic, but also kind of solitary. Just the perfect backdrop for the sort of formal courtship that was the norm back then. And this quote, this just lays out what a perfect date night looked like. It sounds pretty idyllic, right? A dance or two, they strolled out into the gardens, they ate ices under the roses. It just paints this picture of a really structured,
but at the same time, deeply romantic social life. So, what does all this add up to? You've got these wild stories, these strange rituals, all this slang. What does it really tell us about the values of that time? What does it say about a kind of college spirit that, let's be honest, has pretty much vanished?
You know, this dedication right from the authors of the book, it really gets to the heart of it. There's this incredibly powerful sense of nostalgia, this feeling that those 4 years were the golden days, an experience so potent that the memory of it could basically get them through anything for the rest of their lives. Ultimately, this book is so much more than just a bunch of quaint, old-timey tales. It's really a snapshot of a time when college was about more than just getting your degree. It was about belonging to a whole other world, a community that was forged through these fierce loyalties, its own secret language, and a spirit of fun that honestly felt incredibly high stakes. Which, of course, leaves us with one last question. We've just looked at a world of, let's see, formalized fights with trunk ropes, crazy elaborate pranks just to get a date, and romance that was always, always chaperoned. It feels like a completely different planet for sure. But if you strip all of that away, how much has the real core of college life actually changed?